to go to the left. So despite my efforts to paddle back, I was now stuck outside, the term surfers use for the zone beyond where the waves are breaking, and far from where I could safely return to shore. My surf buddy was nowhere to be seen in the water, having probably and wisely ditched the effort sooner. It doesn't matter how many people you're surfing with, I thought. In the end, you're alone, just you and the ocean. What if I can't get in by myself, I wondered as I contemplated my predicament. I closed my eyes and saw an unlikely fever dream pastiche of lost-at-sea images. Sunburned survivors found in life rafts having subsisted on raw fish, birds, and their own urine. Old-style paintings of half-nude women shipwrecked and flung upon the sand. Headlines about teenagers who'd fallen prey to riptides seemingly every year in the Rockaways. The Andrea Gale buffeted by mammoth seas before sinking. Gilligan and the skipper losing control of the SS Minnow on what was supposed to be a 3-hour tour. I peered at the beach. I was even farther from my friends, who now looked like stick figures on the sand. Can they tell I'm in trouble? Can they call in a rescue? Can I hold on long enough, or will I get swept out to sea? Are there sharks out there? Resting, I tried to tamp down the rising sense of dread, but I couldn't keep other kinds of doubts from creeping in. Maybe I was just not meant for this. If I'd so wrongly assumed I was ready for this ocean, I might very well have been wrongly convinced that I could actually have a role with the swell surfer's life, that I could, in middle age, pivot from my get-ahead, career-focused existence to something that seemed more meaningful. Maybe it was too late for that, just like it was too late to save my marriage, too late to get pregnant, too late to find another great love. I was clinging to a rented surfboard and maybe to a rented life, one I could dip into from time to time, but couldn't really make my own. I looked around and took in the spectacular beauty of the place, seeing how close to and yet still so far from safety I was. What a ridiculous place to die. Suddenly, something in me snapped. So what? So what if I didn't have the answers, or a partner, or the picture-perfect life I thought I was building? I'd bought, not rented this new life, and now I had to live it. You got yourself into this mess, and it's up to you and you alone to get out of it. I sat up and took a deep breath as I arched my back and stretched out my chest, squeezing my shoulder blades together and shutting my eyes against the brilliance of the sky. Overcome, I yelled out, "No, not now," words that were immediately swallowed by the water's roar. I flopped back down on the board and began pulling my arms through the chop, hardly able to hold up my chest and head, but willing myself to ignore the soreness and near paralysis settling into my shoulders, arms, and back. "You can do this," I chanted, over and over like a mantra, cackling at how insane and uncool I must have looked, 1,000,000 miles away from one of those sinewy surf babes I was trying to become. Dig deeper. Eventually, I cast an eye toward the shore and saw the stack of logs that doubled as stairs between the beach and the parking lot and realized that I was almost where I needed to be. Looking out toward the horizon, I noticed waves cresting and threatening to break, waves that looked like they could swallow and pummel me. I needed to get beyond them, where I could maybe catch one or slip back in between them. One began rising up beside me, so I slowly spun the board around and headed toward it with what little strength I had left, thinking I could punch through the lip. But the ocean had a different idea. As I began sailing through to the other side, I felt a force like the hand of Poseidon grab the tail of my board, spin it around, and thrust it down the crumbling face of the wave. Water churned and rumbled around me as I gripped the edges of the board and lifted my chest, hoping that would keep me afloat and off the ocean floor. As I hurtled along, the curtain of water swaddling my head parted, and I could see that I was speeding toward the shore, where my friends were jumping up and down, yelling and gesturing for me to stand up and actually surf the wave. But I had noodles for arms and nothing left to launch my cramping body onto my feet. I was missing a shot at the very thing I traveled for, a ride on a wave, my skin bathed in sunlight and droplets of warm water. It was a disappointment, but I barely had the energy to care. As I neared the beach, I rolled off the board in exhaustion and relief, dragged it out of the water, and dropped it in the sand, then hunched over to rest my elbows on my knees. I stayed there, panting, and listened to my heartbeat slow as the waves crashed and receded somewhere behind me, and a sense of security returned. I'd survived the ordeal with no real harm, at least not to my body.